Hello and welcome to Behind the Story. I'm Eli Sherman. This week we're going to be talking about offshore wind, and to do that I'm joined by my co-host Kim Kalunian, and our guest is Anastasia Lennon, a reporter from the New Bedford Light. Anastasia, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I think it might be helpful because, of course, Kim and I know what the New Bedford Light is, but just to start, do you think that you could explain to our viewers exactly what your organization is and what you do there?
Yeah, so the New Bedford Light, we're a nonprofit newsroom. We launched in, I think, June 2021. And so we're a little over 4 years old, and we mostly focus on New Bedford, the South Coast, and we cover a whole range of issues, immigration, which has been a big beat lately, but offshore wind, education, police, courts, housing, everything that there is to cover in a city like New Bedford.
Yeah, there's a lot of organizations that start in the news world, and I would say that the New Bedford Light has been tremendously successful. They do just such a great job on the South Coast. If you're interested in news in that area and just industry-wide stuff, you should go check it out. We had you on today, Anastasia, because there's been some big news in the offshore wind industry, and of course, that is a beat that you cover very closely and have very well, might I add, for quite a while now. And the Trump administration, of course, ordered a halt to Revolution Wind, which is this massive project off of the south coast of Massachusetts and Rhode Island, meant to power a bunch of homes in Rhode Island and Connecticut when it's done. Can you tell us exactly how this happened and what it means for that project?
Yep, so like a lot of news, sometimes it dropped on a Friday afternoon, so
Sure
officials can drop it and dip out, and you ask for answers to your questions, you won't always get them, and so that's what happened Friday afternoon. This order dropped, an outlet broke the news, but you go to BOEM, which is the regulator for offshore wind, on the website, and right there for Revolution Wind, they uploaded, it was a two-page, not even two-page order, basically saying Revolution Wind, you have to cease all operations, they're under construction, and they cited some vague national security concerns, and they said this review they've been undertaking is how they came across these concerns, and basically you have to cease operations until we can figure out how to address this. It didn't say much more than that, but the important thing is now this project, which is under construction, can't continue until the government says it can resume, or who knows what it'll say.
I'm wondering, I saw the news pop on Friday evening, I think is when this, you mentioned an outlet reported it, sort of like an industry news outlet, and I got an email about it, and I looked at it for a second, and I thought to myself, is this a big deal? This seems like a big deal. And I'm wondering if it took you by surprise, or if, given your reporting and your knowledge of what's sort of been happening in this space, if you saw this coming.
So I don't know if I saw it specifically coming with Revolution Wind, but to answer your question, I wasn't surprised.
Yeah.
It seems that constantly my inbox is getting messages, releases from the federal government announcing that they've ordered this new review or they've issued new guidance, all of which is going to make it harder for the offshore wind industry to build, to move forward. And I've started compiling a list, and we'll have a story out this week on that. But I think I'm at more than 15 actions that they've taken since January, since Trump took office, that are having really significant impacts on these projects.
Just to give people a sense of how far along this project was, I believe that they said it was 80%, right? So this isn't just some new project that was being permitted. This is actual turbines that are being placed out in the water, and they were pretty far along, getting close to actually finishing up with all of that installation. Obviously, it came with a lot of happiness from opponents of the offshore wind industry and a lot of anger from proponents, including union laborers. And we have a little bit of sound that I actually want to play for you. Take a listen here.
For our right to survival, but the Trump administration just did.
And to say a word that the current president uses in the White House, I'll say that maybe some of the leaders behind me can't say. This is bullshit right now. This is bullshit on what's happening with the hard men and women that have dedicated a lot of time and effort and training to go out in a very difficult environment to build this very complex offshore wind project.
So obviously you hear they're very emotional from both sides of this issue, but can you give us a sense just as to how disruptive this order to stop will be for this project and for the people that are working on it?
So it's going to disrupt contractors. So, from the higher levels, a developer has to contract with a really big, expensive, specialized vessel. There are only a few in the world that are capable of installing these turbines. And so that can throw things into a bit of chaos because I don't know their contract windows, but who knows, that vessel might be needed in a few months or less for another project. And if Revolution Wind moves forward, they might need more time, depending how long this stop work order is, to finish construction. So at that level, it can complicate things greatly. But at the individual level, you have union workers working on these projects. And I spoke with one from Massachusetts today. He hasn't been out to the site yet, but he's scheduled to be out next week to go offshore to help pull the cables, the inter-array cables that are called, into a turbine to connect it to the grid for when eventually this project is operating. And so, yeah, there are thousands of people and tons of businesses that are involved in all of these projects. And in the construction phase, that means a lot of them are not going to be working right now. As maybe the company Ørsted figures out, again, what it's going to mean for its contracts and the windows that it has to finish construction.
How big of a deal is the offshore wind industry in general for New Bedford?
So the wind industry has grown its footprint over the last few years in New Bedford. Our Mayor John Mitchell, has bet big on it. We have a training institute that opened, National Offshore Wind Institute, and it trains not just local people, but Europeans have come over to get recertified before they go offshore here. The Marine Commerce Terminal, which was built by the state, but it was a major investment, and it was purpose-built for offshore wind. And for many years, as we waited for the industry to take off, it was kind of sitting underutilized. But that is a major investment the state made, and it's in New Bedford. And the plan is that after Vineyard Wind, which is using it now, is finished, that more projects would come in. But those projects, we're wondering what's going to happen with those with this administration. The one that was supposed to come in after Vineyard Wind said it's now delayed at least 2 years. So it's probably at least a few years that site isn't going to be used by an offshore wind developer. And so, yeah, there's union laborers in New Bedford that want to get trained and work on these projects. So, yeah, there's a lot of potential impacts, and the projects that are in the pipeline, they also wanted to set up a manufacturing facility in New Bedford, but that's contingent on the project moving forward, and long-term operations in New Bedford, but again, contingent on the projects moving forward. So these are potential job losses, if they don't come to fruition.
I want to talk about some of these security concerns that the Trump administration has cited for stopping the project. But just about 30 seconds before we go to break, is there any clear pathway for Revolution Wind to get this project up and running again, or is it just up in the air?
So the order says that they are able to appeal the decision under law. Ørsted has said it's still considering legal pathways.
Ørsted is the owner
of Revolution Wind. So there's that possibility, and then there's politicians that have been talking about maybe there's a deal to be made, because we saw that happen with another project that was under a stop work order, and a purported deal was made and the project was allowed to move forward. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, I want to talk about that project along with the security concerns, and we're going to take a look at what other offshore wind projects are in the mix after the break. Stick with us. Hello and welcome back to Behind the Story. I'm Eli Sherman. We're talking offshore wind today, and I'm joined by my co-host Kim Kalunian. Our guest is Anastasia Lennon of the New Bedford Light. Anastasia, one of the things that you did really well, and you said it off the top that you did it almost for your own edification, was put together this map which shows, and we're just going to take a look at what's south of Martha's Vineyard here. You had other maps that showed New York and down the eastern seaboard, but I want to focus sort of on what's in our region. Can you walk us through exactly what we're looking at here?
Yep, so this is considered the Rhode Island, Massachusetts wind energy area, and we have a range of projects at different stages. So you see a little tiny green rectangles. So that's the first commercial scale wind farm that was completed. It's been operational since last year. So that's South Fork Wind, and that's also a project owned by Ørsted, which is developing Revolution Wind. And you see that they're sort of sandwiched. They're in the same little area, but one's operational. The other, just a few days ago, would have been colored yellow to denote under construction, but now it's under a stop work order, so it's not being constructed at this time. And
so in other words, everything on this map besides the green is either under construction, without permit. They're all in the works. Is that fair to say?
yeah, some are just a lot farther along though than others. The red
Okay.
ones, yeah, they're many years away.
Okay.
What about the yellow ones, Sunrise Wind and Vineyard Wind? Where do those stand? Because they're in that under construction umbrella.
Yep, so Vineyard Wind, they say they plan to be completed this year. Sunrise Wind, I think they only have the turbine foundations or the monopiles in, which means they still have a lot more to install. But Vineyard Wind, last I checked, at least 40 of the 62 turbines are in the water. They still need to undergo commissioning before they come online, so a lot fewer are actually operating, but they have a lot more steel in the water.
And I think one of the biggest questions that we've gotten is about how this is going to affect people's energy bills. Like, what's the claim from these wind farms about how it's going to help the average ratepayer?
Yep, so New England, Massachusetts, they've bet big on this. They're anchoring their climate and energy goals on wind. And ISO New England, which is the operator, they, in a report they put out, I think last year, said if wind isn't developed at the scale that they're planning, that ratepayers are going to see maybe a 50% increase by 2050.
Wow.
And so they plan on this being a substantial source of energy, and they term it as being shovel-ready projects. And so if these projects don't go forward, that's the big question, right? Where are we going to meet this growing demand that everyone's talking about due to data centers, AI, and yeah, that's the big question.
I want to talk to you about security concerns because national security concerns was what was cited by the Trump administration in putting a stop to the work on Revolution Wind. I believe it was also the reason that was given for the project off of Long Island in New York. Is that right?
So they did not cite national security concerns, if I'm remembering correctly. They cited a NOAA, so NOAA Fisheries, a study or report that they had created, one that we don't know much about. Other news outlets have requested it, and it was released to them, but almost entirely redacted, blacked out, so no one can see what it actually
hate that.
no one can see what it says. But that was the main sort of pretext for halting that project, whereas what we're seeing this time around is they're focusing on this national security.
So what exactly is national security concerns according to the Trump administration?
It's a very good question. When I asked the Interior Department, BOEM, they just said they didn't have any further comment. But fortunately, they're national reporters, so CNN's Caitlin Collins, she spoke to the Interior Secretary Doug Burgum yesterday, and he cited concerns about drone attacks that could be sort of launched within wind farms, interference with radar, and he mentioned like a submarine. I think he might have said Russian submarine, but sort of how turbines might interfere with that. So that was a little more detailed, but I think a lot of people are still questioning, given a review of national security concerns is a part of this lengthy permitting process that all these projects go through.
Kind of looming over this, though, of course, is a competing effort from the natural gas industry to also expand infrastructure in that area. How much is, from your reporting, do you think that interest is also playing into potentially what's happening with offshore wind?
So I'll caveat that this is speculative, and this is picking up on what others are reporting and what politicians have said. But again, the EPA administrator mentioned a natural gas pipeline in the context of Revolution Wind, saying that there could be an expansion in New England. And so the next question, of course, is this like, hey, we'll let you proceed, but we want to expand this pipeline now. And so, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. It's a fair question to ask, but I don't want to opine too much on that without more knowledge.
I want to ask you about another huge industry in New Bedford, the fishing industry. We heard a little sound in the start of the show from the fishermen here in Rhode Island at Galilee. They had a press conference earlier this week to sort of say, we agree with the Trump administration. We don't want to see these move forward. What are you hearing from fishermen in New Bedford?
So it's a mixed bag. There's lots of strong emotions. I think it was most interesting. I spoke with fishermen who really don't like wind, but they're working on the project. So
In what way?
Vineyard Wind, they contract fishing vessels when they're not out at sea. So scallop vessels, for example, are only out, I think, 30 or so days, maybe a little more of the year. And so when they're not fishing, well, let's use those vessels. And that could be sort of they just sit around the wind farm to make sure there's no interference or safety concerns with other vessels coming in. They were paid to help gather some of the foam debris after the blade blade broke last year.
That was off Nantucket, right?
Yep. And so they're doing a lot of that sort of work, security, safety, vessel work. And, they say they'll take the money, but they still don't like wind, and they would be happy to wait it out and see it sort of die in the vine. But while they wait, they'll, help out. And so there are fishermen, as you noted, as the clip showed, that are very happy about this. I'm trying to think of any I've spoken to that are really super on board with wind.
Not so much.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to follow up really quickly. What is their big concern with wind? Why don't they like it?
Yeah, so I mean, there are legitimate concerns, and there can be some conflicts. There is some overlap of wind leases with fishing grounds, and fishermen, rightfully so, are concerned about transiting maybe within wind farms. They don't want their gear to get caught. That could be very dangerous. There's also concern about impacts that the turbines might have on the species that they fish. And so as part of this process, there has been some compromises about where they've sited wind farms or how far they've spaced the turbines. There's compensation programs, so if fishermen feel that they've sustained any damage to their gear or to the fishery, or that they've sort of lost out on business because of this, they can file a claim. Other developers have said, you know what, if you fished here in this area these years, we'll give you some money. But yeah, it's a complicated sort of conflict, right? There are lots of users of the ocean, and it's trying to find a balance for all of them.
In just about 30 seconds, I want you to big picture this.
30 seconds, no pressure.
Revolution Wind, of course, is the first stoppage of work to be ordered in our region. Do you expect more dominoes to fall?
I'll say that I wouldn't be surprised. Just like the email came in on Friday, I wouldn't be surprised if something else is issued. And I'd also be curious what happens if, say, a deal is struck here. Then the question is, well, what's going to be the next deal they want to get, and what project might they use to get that?
Okay, well, that unfortunately is all the time that we have with you, Anastasia. I encourage everybody to please go to the New Bedford Light, read all of her reporting along with all of her colleagues, because they do a tremendous job. Anastasia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, when we come back, the stories we wish we wrote. Stick with us. Welcome back to Behind the Story. I'm Eli Sherman. I'm here with my co-host, Kim Kalunian, and we're entering into the final stage of our show, the stories we wish we wrote. I am so excited this week about the first story that we're going to talk about, and this is something that Kim found. Kim, take it away.
Well, Eli, I was just saying to you in the break, I like to find stories that are a little bit lighter, because sometimes things get heavy and we all need a laugh or a smile.
Fair.
And this headline immediately struck me. This is from the East Bay RI by Christian Sylvia. The headline is "Cow Pie Star Comes Up Empty in Little Compton." And the subhead...
I was wondering how long it was going to take for us to talk about cow pies on this story.
This is something you're familiar with.
Yeah,
I didn't know this.
Please go on.
Okay,
I'm so excited.
We'll get to your history with cow pies in a moment. The subhead is "Magenta the Cow Loses Interest in Cow Pie Contest as Little Compton Celebrates Farmers." And basically... cow pies, people can figure out what it is, but there's
What is a cow pie, Kim?
It's poop, right?
Oh, yep.
It's just poop.
That's it.
Cow poop. Wow, here we are. Anyway, they set up a grid, and basically it's sort of, correct me if I'm wrong, because you've been to these things. It's like bingo, where if the cow puts the cow pie on your square, you win a prize?
Yeah, it's sort of like we're getting into football season. People do squares for the Super Bowl. You can buy a square, and then if the score ends at the end of that quarter in that square, then you get the money. This is the exact same, but instead you're watching a cow for as long as it takes the cow to move around this grid of field until it does its business. If it's in your square, you get the money. But in this case,
Magenta didn't want to. She was like, this is beneath me. So she laid down and took a nap, and then they just picked a random winner. But I appreciate that this was written up so colorfully. I think you should go and read it.
yeah, it's excellent. And there's more color from other events that were happening.
That's
at the
right. A
field in Little
tomato
Compton.
contest.
Tomato
and-
contest.
Yeah.
This is classic.
Great.
Small town activities. I'm from a small town.
I love
this
it.
is stuff that you look forward to each year.
I'm going to go check it out next year.
You should. It's fun. I'm gonna bring it back to a little bit more serious.
Okay.
Our friend Colleen Cronin, who came on the show, of course, she did a great story. She got some records through a public records request, looking at emails, and the former Providence mayor Joe Paolino really laid into RIPTA over the proposed bus hub that's downtown, and called it sort of a joke, and that they were failing the governor. Meanwhile, of course, this is going on at the same time that RIPTA's having a lot of challenges trying to figure out its budget and a deficit. So just a lot of RIPTA news going on. But Colleen did a great job of actually sort of getting beneath the surface and seeing at some of the players and some of the frustration that's existing there. And she always does such a great job.
She really does. And now RIPTA, of course, is saying we're not going to have to eliminate any routes. We're just going to make some changes. There's this one-time injection of money that they're saying will help things. Transit advocates, though, are not convinced.
Yeah,
so
it's
we shall see.
No cuts, but reductions in services. So
which they're not happy about.
Yeah, exactly.
Staying on the topic of transportation, I want to shout out Patrick Anderson over at the Providence Journal, who you just had on last week, right?
That's right.
So we love Patrick. He had
Everyone's becoming a familiar face.
That's right. As we're introducing our audience to all of the faces behind the byline.
Yep.
He got some documents as well through a public records request. Basically, the 11 organizations that responded to the RFI, the request for information that the Department of Transportation put out after the failed RFP to rebuild the westbound span of the Washington Bridge. And the headline is "Impossible: Why Potential Bridge Builders Question RI's New Washington Bridge Plans." And basically, what he found through this document request was that these construction firms told the state that it had set an impossible timeline that prioritized speed over quality and lacked clear parameters for the job. I actually took this story to Director Alviti earlier this week when he was on 12 News at 4. And he basically said, this is nothing we didn't already know.
Right.
And all's well that ends well. We learned from the process. We were purposefully trying to be aggressive, and now we've got...
cut you short here, Kim. I'm sorry. We're running out of time.
We're running out of time.
But everyone should go check out those stories and more. We'll shout them out. For much more on this episode and any other episode, you can go to our website, WPRI.com, or YouTube. And you can also find this as a podcast. But for now, Kim Kalunian, I'm Eli Sherman. Thanks for watching Behind the Story.